The moment my mom turned on the camera, I knew it was going to be a disaster. Seriously. That expression on her face was always a sign of trouble. And the worst part was that when my mom had a brilliant idea, nobody could change her mind. It all started one Saturday afternoon. I was finally trying to relax after a tiring week, sprawled on the living room sofa, scrolling through my phone while our dog, Thor, slept sprawled on the floor as if he paid the household bills. The silence was perfect. Until my mom appeared holding the tripod, the phone, and a bag full of colorful accessories. "Son, I had a wonderful idea." I sat up slowly, already suspicious. When she said that, it usually meant public embarrassment. "No. Whatever it is, no." She completely ignored my answer and started pulling things out of the bag. Funny glasses, bandanas, toys, and a bow tie for Thor. I stared at it in disbelief. "Mom, for God's sake, what is this?" She flashed an excited smile, the kind that's impossible to control. "Let's film a challenge with Thor. These videos are blowing up on the internet." At that moment, Thor slowly raised his head, as if he understood that his piece was also over. "I'm not participating in this." "Yes, you are." "I'm not. I already told your aunt you were going to help." "That's it." Because my mother had this special ability to involve the whole family before the person even agreed to anything. She started walking around the room dragging furniture while explaining the plan. According to her, the challenge consisted of hiding treats around the house and recording Thor's intelligent reactions, as he found everything. In theory it seemed simple. In practice, it was Thor. Our dog had the energy of 5 children combined and the concentration span of 2 seconds. While my mother prepared the camera, Thor started running around the room thinking it was all a game. In less than a minute, he knocked over a cushion, almost pulled the tablecloth off the table, and ran off with one of my socks in his mouth. My mother, instead of giving up, got even more excited. "That's it. Naturalness. The audience loves spontaneity." "What audience, Mom?" "You have 42 followers." She put her hand to her chest, offended. "Envy is ugly." I took a deep breath, trying to keep my patience. But deep down, the situation was already getting funny. Thor came running back and jumped on the sofa next to me, wagging his tail so hard he almost knocked over the remote. My mother immediately pointed the camera at us. "Perfect. Pet him. Smile." "I'm not an influencer." "Today you are." I wanted to disappear. Seriously. The worst part was that she took it incredibly seriously. Adjusting the lighting, cleaning the corner of the room, moving objects around, as if we were producing a Hollywood movie. Meanwhile, Thor just wanted to play. At one point, my mother tried to put a bow tie on him. The result? He ran all over the house while she chased after him yelling, "Come back here, Thor." And me? I was in the middle of the room laughing like an idiot. Because, honestly, it was impossible not to laugh. That whole mess had a strangely fun energy. For the first time that week, the house seemed alive. No worries, no routine, none of that usual heavy silence. Just my mom freaking out chasing after a hyperactive dog. After several minutes of chaos, she finally managed to position the camera. She took a deep breath. She looked at me. She looked at Thor. And she said, with the confidence of someone about to create the biggest video on the internet, "Now it's going to work." It was exactly at that moment that Thor grabbed the entire bag of treats from the table and ran off through the house. After Thor ran off carrying the entire bag of treats, my mom officially entered a state that I can only describe as film director mode. She chased after him holding the camera in one hand and a bow tie in the other, while I watched everything from the kitchen trying to decide whether to help or pretend I didn't know either of them. "Thor, give it back." Thor, obviously, interpreted that as an invitation to speed up even more. The sound of his paws echoed throughout the house. It was the hallway, the living room, the kitchen. It looked like a cartoon chase. The more chaos ensued, the more convinced my mother seemed that we were creating viral content. "Mom, this isn't a video. This is a documentary about domestic chaos." She pointed her finger at me without stopping running. "The best videos on the internet are like this." And you know what's worse? Maybe she was right. That same night, after finally retrieving the treats and convincing Thor to calm down for about 30 seconds, my mother sat on the sofa and started showing me videos of famous dogs. There was a dog wearing sunglasses. A dog pretending to cook. A dog dressed as a police officer. One of them literally had millions of followers. My mother stared at the screen, completely fascinated. "Son, look at this. This dog gets more publicity than a lot of people." "Mom, he wears a hat and barks at the camera." "Exactly. Thor can do it too." I looked at Thor at that moment. He was trying to bite his own tail in the middle of the room. "No, you can't." But my mother had already made her decision. The next day, she showed up at home carrying 3 enormous bags from a pet shop. I knew our peace was over. She spread everything out on the kitchen table as if she were preparing a grand reveal. There were superhero outfits, colorful glasses, mini hats, noisy toys, and even a red cape. "Mom, why does our dog now look like a member of a children's band?" She proudly held up a blue outfit. "This is visual strategy. This is animal humiliation." Thor entered the kitchen at that moment and immediately realized something strange was happening. He stopped in the doorway, looking suspiciously at the table full of accessories. My mother slowly bent down, holding a bandana. "Come here, Mommy's little artist." He ran off. I started laughing so hard I almost dropped my glass on the table. Because it was always like this. My mother created enormous plans in her head. And Thor would destroy everything in less than 5 minutes. But honestly, it was impossible not to get caught up in her energy. She got so excited that she ended up involving everyone. The whole house seemed lighter when she started these crazy ideas. Even the neighbors were used to it. At some point in the afternoon, the neighbor appeared at the gate and asked, "Are you filming a movie?" My mother replied without hesitation, "Future internet phenomenon." I lowered my head in embarrassment as Thor ran after a ball and almost knocked over a plant. The real problem started when my mother decided to create challenges. According to her, normal videos weren't enough anymore. Now Thor needed to complete missions. The first idea was to hide snacks around the living room and film him looking for them. It seemed simple. Until Thor completely ignored the snacks and started running after the camera. The second idea involved an obstacle course made with chairs, cushions, and broom handles. The result? Thor crossed everything in a straight line, knocked down half the living room, and almost took my mother with him. Even fallen on the sofa, she was still laughing nonstop. "That was great. Did you record it?" "Mom, was the video your priority after falling?" "Of course." I couldn't believe it. But deep down, it had been a long time since I'd seen her so happy. After months of living that exhausting routine of work, bills, and silence at home, those absurdly chaotic afternoons were bringing a different kind of energy to us. Even I started to join in the fun. Without realizing it, I was already helping to adjust the lighting, holding treats, and trying to convince Thor to look at the camera for more than 2 seconds. Spoiler: impossible. She looked at the dog as if he were an internet celebrity. And the funniest part? Thor really acted like one. Every time the camera turned on, he would start running, barking, jumping on the sofa, and doing the exact opposite of what he should. At the end of the night, after hours of failed attempts, my mother sat on the living room floor completely exhausted. Thor lay down next to her. I sat down too. The living room was a mess. There were toys scattered everywhere, a crooked cushion, and treats even under the table. My mom looked at me and started laughing. And I laughed along. Because, even though it was the craziest idea in the world, maybe that mess was becoming one of the best memories we ever had in that house. On the 3rd day of filming, my mom woke up with the energy of someone about to produce the biggest internet hit in Brazil. I woke up to the sound of her dragging furniture around at 8 in the morning. When I got to the living room, still half asleep, I found a terrifying scene: piled up cushions, makeshift lighting with a lamp, duct tape on the floor, and Thor sitting in the middle of it all, looking around completely confused. "Mom, what's going on here?" She turned to me, holding a clipboard. "A clipboard. Today we're going to film the definitive video. Did you plan it? Of course. An unorganized influencer doesn't grow. Thor yawned. I did too. The plan for the day was simple. At least in her head. She wanted to film a smart challenge for Thor. Basically, he would have to overcome small obstacles, find hidden treats, and press a button at the end. It seemed cute. It seemed easy. It seemed impossible for our dog. My mother positioned the camera with all the concentration in the world. Perfect lighting. Then she arranged the objects. Perfect setting. She looked at Thor. Perfect artist. Thor, at that moment, was licking his own paw, paying absolutely no attention to anything. Let's begin, she announced. In the first 5 seconds, everything went wrong. Thor simply walked off in the opposite direction of the circuit and started sniffing a plant near the window. No, son. Here. Here. My mother clapped desperately while holding a treat high. Thor looked at her and ran to the kitchen. I started laughing immediately. He's sabotaging his career. He just needs motivation. 5 minutes later, she returned with pieces of chicken. According to her, now the artist would be committed to the project. Spoiler, he wasn't. This time, Thor actually started the course, but halfway through decided it would be a great idea to jump on the sofa. The problem? The sofa was next to the bookcase. And the bookshelf was full of expensive decorations that my mother bought, because they added elegance to the house. It all happened so fast. A jump. A bark. A huge noise. And suddenly, crash. Her favorite decorative vase fell to the floor and shattered. The silence that followed was terrifying. Thor froze. I froze. Even the fan seemed to have stopped. My mother slowly looked at the floor full of pieces. She took a deep breath. I swore she was going to explode. But then, she started laughing. Laughing a lot. The kind that makes you lose your breath. I just stared, not understanding. Mom, are you okay? She sat on the sofa, still laughing. I spent 3 months choosing this vase, and it died trying to become an influencer. Even I started laughing too. And Thor? Thor wagged his tail as if he had just accomplished a great mission. After that, the chaos officially worsened. The more we tried to control the situation, the more the chaos increased. My mother kept insisting on new ideas. There was the attempt to put sunglasses on Thor. It lasted 2 seconds. He shook his head and his glasses flew straight into her coffee cup. Then came the superhero costume challenge. Thor ran all over the house with his cape crooked while my mom chased after him yelling, "Come back here, Batco." I was almost crying with laughter. The problem is that Thor started getting too excited. He jumped on the furniture, knocked over cushions, dragged rugs, and turned any recording into collective destruction. At one point, my mom decided to do a cinematic entrance of him running down the hallway in slow motion. She spent almost 20 minutes organizing everything. Adjusted the lighting. Closed the curtains. Tested the angle. Took a deep breath. Now it's going to happen. She let Thor go. And he immediately ran. Straight into her room. Seconds later, we heard another noise. This time louder. When we got there, we found Thor tangled in the fallen curtain on the floor, completely trapped in the fabric, walking like a frightened ghost. I couldn't even breathe from laughing so hard. My mother tried to help, but she was laughing so hard she could barely stand. My God! He knocked down the whole curtain. Thor ran through the house still tangled in the cloth while the two of us chased him like crazy. That scene looked like a sitcom. And maybe that's exactly what made it so fun. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't organized. And it definitely didn't look like any of those flawless internet videos. But it was real. It was our mess. Our house. Our hyperactive dog slowly destroying the family's property. At the end of the afternoon, completely exhausted, the 3 of us ended up sprawled on the living room floor. Thor on his back. My mother disheveled. And me too weak to even laugh anymore. She looked around at the destruction. Cushions scattered. Crooked curtain. Toys on the floor. And half the treats gone. Then she looked at me with a tired smile. Do you think it can still go viral? I looked at Thor trying to chew on a piece of his own superhero cape and replied, "Mom, honestly? I think the audience will love it precisely because everything went wrong." After turning the house into a cinematic war scene, my mother had an even worse idea. She decided that the filming needed to happen outdoors. According to her, natural light brought better quality. According to me, natural light only meant more people witnessed our humiliation. The next morning, she opened the gate carrying a camera, tripod, treats, and a dangerously optimistic energy. Thor ran ahead as if he were entering a stadium. I followed, already feeling anticipatory shame. "Mom, please. Let's film quickly. Relax. It'll be fun." Those words never meant anything good. The plan was to film Thor doing small challenges in the front garden. Something cute and spontaneous, in her words. But there's one important thing about our neighborhood: everyone watches everything. It didn't take 5 minutes for the neighbor across the street to appear at the window pretending to water plants while clearly watching our private circus. My mother didn't even care. On the contrary, she started acting like a children's show host. And today Thor is going to show off all his intelligence. Thor, at that exact moment, was trying to dig a hole near the rose bush. I immediately lowered my head. I wanted to disappear every time someone looked out the window. And people did look. A lot. Mr. Antonio, who always walked his dog in the morning, literally stopped on the sidewalk to watch. 2 children started laughing on the other side of the street. And my mother? Even more excited. This is good. Audience generates engagement. Mom, this isn't engagement. This is public humiliation. She completely ignored me. The first recording involved Thor crossing a small circuit made with colored cones. It seemed simple. Until Thor decided that the cones were his personal enemies. In less than 10 seconds, he ran through the garden knocking everything down. Cone to one side, camera to the other, my mother behind him shouting his name like a soccer coach. And of course, it was exactly at that moment that my aunt showed up unannounced. She came through the gate and froze, staring at the scene. Me in the middle of the garden holding a bag of treats. My mother chasing the dog. Thor carrying a cone in his mouth. Silence. Then my aunt slowly asked, "Can I come back another time?" My mother started laughing so hard she almost sat on the floor. I wanted to bury myself alive. But it got worse. Much worse. Because my aunt decided to help. 5 minutes later she was already holding the camera while my mother organized the next scene. Suddenly, it turned into a family production. Thor, obviously, noticed all the commotion and went into maximum destruction mode. He started running in circles in the garden, jumping on people, stealing treats, and escaping whenever someone tried to control the situation. At one point, he jumped straight onto the plastic table in the outdoor area. The table tipped over. The glasses fell. And the juice landed exactly on my cousin's white shirt, who had just arrived. His gaze was one of pure suffering. My mother laughed without being able to breathe. My aunt laughed along. The kids on the street were practically watching live from the sidewalk. And me? I just kept repeating to myself, "Please, let no one record this." Spoiler, they did. The worst moment happened in the late afternoon. My mother decided to create an emotional scene with Thor running in slow motion towards her. She dramatically opened her arms. My aunt started filming. I held the snacks trying to get his attention. For a second, it seemed like it was finally going to work. Thor ran in the right direction. My mother smiled emotionally. But at the last instant, he changed course. And jumped straight into the small inflatable children's pool in the neighbor's yard. The water rose like an explosion. The children started screaming with laughter. The neighbor appeared, startled. My mother fell sitting on the grass, laughing hysterically. And Thor ran out of the pool, wet, down the entire street. I slowly closed my eyes. Because at that moment I was absolutely certain, that video would never leave the internet. Not even my shame. After the inflatable pool disaster, I thought my mother would finally give up on that idea of becoming an animal content producer. But clearly, I still didn't know the level of determination that woman had. That night, while I was drying Thor with a towel in the laundry room, my mother appeared holding her cell phone with a dangerously hopeful look. "Son, I had another idea. I didn't even look up." "No, but this time it's simple. You've said that the last 20 times." She sat down next to me, completely ignoring my accumulated emotional trauma. Thor, totally relaxed after destroying half the family's reputation in the neighborhood, was lying on the floor wagging his tail as if nothing had happened. My mother began to explain the ultimate plan. According to her, funny videos worked best when they seemed natural. So there would be no fantasy, no special effects, no slow motion. Just a spontaneous moment between the family and the dog. It seemed innocent, which scared me even more. The next day, she discreetly placed her cell phone on the living room shelf. No exaggerated lighting. No accessories. No dramatic soundtrack. Miraculously simple. "Today nobody's forcing anything," she promised. I looked suspicious. "You swear?" "I swear." Thor entered the room carrying an old toy in his mouth and immediately started running from one side to the other. My mother tried to stay calm this time. "Let's just play normally." And, honestly, for a few minutes, it seemed to work. I sat on the floor playing with Thor, while my mother laughed on the sofa, watching everything. No pressure, no shouting, no absurd expectations. For the first time, it seemed like a normal afternoon. Maybe that was exactly what was missing. But the universe clearly didn't want normality in that house. Everything happened very quickly. Thor dropped the toy, ran to the kitchen, and came back holding an entire package of paper towels. Before anyone could react, he started running around the room, unrolling the paper like a white hurricane. "Thor!" My mother jumped up in despair. I tried to grab the roll. Worst idea ever. Thor thought it was a joke. In seconds, he sped even faster around the entire house while miles of paper towels scattered across the floor. Living room. Hallway. Sofa. Stairs. It looked like carnival decorations made by someone completely crazy. My mother tried to run after him, laughing non-stop. I tripped on the paper and almost fell on the coffee table. Thor ran between my legs. And then, it happened. My mother slipped on a piece of paper towel. But instead of falling badly, she simply sat on the floor unintentionally, like a cartoon character. The problem is that, startled, she yelled, "I give up on this dog." Thor immediately came running back, worried, still dragging half the paper around the house. He stopped in front of her, tilted his head, and let out a small bark. Silence. I looked at my mother. My mother looked at Thor. And then he did the most absurd thing possible. He took the end of the paper towel in his mouth and started to hand it to her slowly, as if he were apologizing. It was automatic. My mother started laughing. I started laughing. Even Thor started jumping, thinking he had done something incredible. And the cell phone? It recorded absolutely everything. Every second. The fall. The scream. Thor's guilty look. The funniest apology in history. We didn't even realize it at the time. Only later, when we watched the recording. Silence filled the room while the video played. Then came the scene of Thor taking the paper towel to my mother. My aunt, who was watching along, started laughing so hard she almost dropped her cell phone. I couldn't control myself either. Because it was precisely when everything went wrong that the funniest part happened. It didn't seem rehearsed. It didn't seem forced. It seemed real. Chaotic. Ridiculous. And incredibly funny. My mother wiped away tears from laughing so hard and said the most unbelievable phrase of that week, "Son, I think we finally have our viral video." And for the first time since the beginning of that madness, I started to think she might be right. My mother posted the video that same night. No professional editing. No special effects. No dramatic music. Just the pure chaos of our house. And Thor transforming a domestic disaster into an improvised apology with paper towels. Before bed, she showed me the already published video and asked excitedly, "How many views do you think it'll get?" I shrugged. "I don't know, about 50. And 40 must be from family." She looked offended. "You don't believe in Thor's artistic potential." Thor, at that moment, was sleeping on the sofa completely stretched out, like someone who had just worked 8 hours straight. I laughed and went to sleep without thinking much about it. But the next day, things started to get strange. Very strange. I woke up with my cell phone vibrating non-stop. A message from my aunt. A message from my cousin. A message from a friend I hadn't spoken to in months. Even an old school friend texted me, "Dude, I just saw your dog on the internet." I sat on the bed trying to understand what was happening. When I opened the video, I almost dropped my phone. Over 50,000 views. I blinked several times. I refreshed the screen. 60,000. Then 70. The comments kept piling up. "That dog is more well-behaved than a lot of people." The mom's reaction was the best part, LOL. I laughed so hard when he tried to fix the mess. "Protect that dog immediately." I ran downstairs to the living room. My mom was already awake, holding her phone with wide eyes. "Son, did you see that?" We both started talking at the same time while Thor calmly walked through the living room, unaware that he had just become an internet celebrity. My mom was in shock. "There are people commenting from Mexico. Mom, why is someone from Argentina calling Thor an icon?" She started laughing like a child. And honestly, I was starting to get excited too, because it made absolutely no sense. We spent days trying to record perfect videos, planning, organizing, controlling everything. And the most chaotic moment of the week was precisely what people loved the most. Maybe because it seemed real. In the following days, the situation became even more absurd. Out of nowhere, people I had never seen before started commenting on our video. People tagging friends. Pages reposting excerpts. Humor profiles sharing the moment my mother fell. Even the scene of Thor apologizing became a meme. My mother watched everything as if she were watching a championship final. She updated the views every 5 minutes. 300,000. 5 minutes later, 400,000. Later, son. There's a huge page that posted Thor. I never imagined that a dog running around with paper towels would disrupt our routine so much. The most surreal part started when people began to recognize us. At the market, a woman looked at Thor and asked, "Wait, isn't that the dog from the video?" My mother almost exploded with happiness. "It is him." Thor wagged his tail, completely bewildered, while I pretended to be normal. Spoiler, I was loving it. Even the neighbors started treating Thor differently. Mr. Antonio, who used to complain when he barked too much, now stopped at the gate to play with him. The children on the street started calling him Thor the influencer. And my mother? My mother officially entered the most dangerous phase possible. Fame went to her head. She started studying posting times, researching trends. She spoke words like engagement, reach, and algorithm during lunch. At one point, she came into the room holding a small notebook. "I had some new content ideas." I immediately replied, "No." She completely ignored me. I was thinking of 24 hours letting Thor choose our decisions. "Mom, he eats walls." Exactly. The audience loves authenticity. Thor appeared carrying a sock in his mouth as if he wanted to participate in the creative meeting. I started laughing to myself. Because it was all completely ridiculous, but also very funny. The truth is, it had been a long time since I'd seen our house like that. Light, noisy, full of laughter. After so many days of chaos, shame, and destruction of domestic property, something unexpected had happened. That mess brought us closer. The recordings became an excuse to spend more time together, to laugh more, to forget a little about the normal problems of life. That night, I sat on the sofa watching my mother respond to comments like a professional influencer while Thor slept on his back on the living room floor. And for the first time since the beginning of all that madness, I realized that maybe the video was never just about going viral. Maybe it was about creating a memory we would never forget. If someone had told me, a few weeks before, that a dog running around the house with paper towels would completely transform the atmosphere in our family, I would have laughed in their face. But that's exactly what happened. It all started as a crazy idea from my mother. At the time, I could only think about the embarrassment I was going through. Each recording seemed like a new disaster. Every neighbor looking out the window made me want to disappear. And honestly, I really thought it would just be another embarrassing memory to keep silent. But in the midst of all that mess, something changed inside our house. The routine changed. The silence changed. Even the way we spent time together changed. Before that, each of us lived somewhat trapped in our own worries. Work, cell phones, bills, tiredness. You know when the days start to all become the same? We still loved each other as a family, of course. But sometimes life becomes automatic without us realizing it. And then Thor appeared, destroying cushions, knocking over decorations, and turning ordinary afternoons into real adventures. Funny to think about it now. Because the videos weren't even perfect. The camera shook. The recordings went wrong. My mother almost fell all the time. And Thor did exactly the opposite of what he should have done. But maybe that's precisely what made it all seem so special. It was real. Unfiltered. Without trying to look like a perfect internet family. Just ourselves. Laughing at our own mishaps. Sometimes, the silliest moments end up becoming the best memories. And I think that was exactly the biggest lesson from all of that. The internet saw a funny video. But I experienced something much bigger. I saw my mother smile again in that light, spontaneous, almost childlike way. I saw the house become noisy again. I saw how small things can bring people closer without them even realizing it. Even today, when we watch that video together, my mother still starts laughing even before the main scene happens. And I laugh along. Because now I don't remember the embarrassment anymore. I remember the feeling. From the mess. From Thor running wildly around the room. From my aunt trying to film without laughing. From the moment when everyone forgot their problems for a few minutes just to have fun. I think adult life makes us forget that sometimes. Forget how good it is to simply live simple moments without worrying so much about controlling everything. We spend so much time trying to organize our lives perfectly. But it's almost always the unexpected moments that end up staying in our memory. And maybe that's why that video touched so many people on the internet. It wasn't just about a funny dog. It was about family. About chaos. About hidden affection in small things. About laughing together even when everything goes wrong. Today Thor is still famous in the neighborhood. My mother still talks about him as if he were an international celebrity. And, honestly, I think she's never been happier. Sometimes she still comes up with new ideas for absurd videos. Most of the time I keep saying no. But now I start laughing even before she finishes the sentence. Because deep down I know, the best stories almost always start with a completely crazy idea. Looking back, maybe I never needed to feel so ashamed. Maybe I just needed to enjoy the moment before it became a memory.